All right, starting with the design of the buds, and I must say I really do like the look of these, and I mentioned this when I covered the leaks back in the day, so it's nice to see these are the same as the leaks. And as usual for Sony, build quality here is as good as it gets. You got bronze accents there, which are nice and slick. The matte finish feels great. And look, you've probably seen these buds plenty of times before, so let's talk about what's more important, and that's how they fit. Because Sony has ditched the usual silicone ear tips this time and is only giving you 3 sizes of their polyurethane foam tips, basically foam and silicone, which I was a little bit skeptical of. And also seeing the size of these buds made me more skeptical because these are some chunkers. I'd rate them like a solid 8 out of 10 on the chunk scale, with the WF-1000XM4 being a 9 out of 10, so at least they've shrunk them down a little bit. So we've got a chunky bud, a brand new type of ear tip, which doesn't really seem like a formula for a good fit. And when I first chucked these buds in my ears, didn't like it at all, hated the fit, but I've been using these for about 2 months now, and I still don't love it, but I don't hate it as much. The main thing to mention here is that this isn't a bud that you can just slide straight into your ear, and then you're good to go like most true wireless earbuds that use silicone ear tips. These require a little bit more fiddling, and I found the best way to get these buds in easily is to start by sliding it in kind of the lowest part of my ear canal, then rotate the bud backwards, wiggle it around a little bit, and that normally gets the bud in securely. And with traditional foam ear tips, you're supposed to squish the tip for a few seconds and chuck it in your ear, then it expands in your ear, which you can do on these, but honestly, I don't have time to be squishing buds. I've got some earbuds to review. So with this technique, it's not too annoying. I do have to use the large ear tips. The mediums were a little bit too small, but even then the large, like a little bit too large. So I find maybe an extra size in between would have worked better for me. And since there's just a whole lot of ear tip, I can wear these buds for about 30 to 45 minutes before getting some mild discomfort in my left ear. Then when I hit the hour to hour and a half mark, it gets annoying to the point of not really wanting to wear the buds anymore. And I tried these on my girlfriend. She has a lot smaller ears and ear canals than me, and she could get a fit. Like, she uses the smallest ear tips. They fit okay because it's mainly the ear tip that does a lot of the work, and the rest of the bud kind of chills out of your ear. So no matter the size of your ear, these buds are chunkers, they're gonna stick out quite a bit. But if you do have smaller ears, these might not fit you the best, and my girlfriend pretty much summed it up really well as to how the fit actually feels. She basically summed it up that it feels like she had a cotton bud stuck in her ear, and I can kind of feel that as well. And I have gotten used to this cotton bud like feel, but it's honestly nice to just have the Sonys in my ears for a while whilst I was testing them. And I just chucked a pair like the Sennheiser Momentum 2s in my ear that use normal silicone ear tips, and they slide right in and they just feel so much better. So an easy fix, of course, is to just use some silicone ear tips. They work great with my SpinFit CP360 ear tips in the large size, and they do help with comfort, but the chunk of the bud is also what causes some discomfort outside my ear canal. The fit is definitely less cotton buddy with the silicone ear tips, but you lose a lot of noise cancelling quality, about a 30% reduction, and sound quality is affected as well, becoming much brighter. Bass is reduced slightly, which you may or may not like, but basically these buds were designed around the ear tips. And keep in mind, this is just for me. Fit can be different for everyone. I've seen a lot of comments of people saying that they can wear these all day. All right, so comfort, a little bit of a hit and miss, still a slight improvement over the WF-XM3s, which definitely weren't known for their comfort. But in terms of security, there has been a noticeable improvement compared to the XM3s. And I've used these when weight training, running around, and doing my head shake tests, of course, and they're staying really well. No way they're gonna fall out. It's only when clenching my jaw like through those harder sets or laughing a lot on a phone call, the buds do budge out slightly. So for general use and most types of training, these might work for you. And if you like to use your earbuds when training, these have an IPX4 water resistant rating now, a nice improvement over the nothing from the XM3. So fine for splashes of water, you just can't submerge the buds in water. All right, now let's talk about battery life. And starting with the advertised amounts, you get 8 hours from the buds, 24 hours in total with noise cancelling on, 12 hours from the buds, 36 hours in total with noise cancelling off. And in my testing at 70% volume, noise cancelling on using an iPhone AAC, I got 8 hours and 9 minutes. So spot on with the advertised battery life there. If you want to use these on an Android device with LDAC, I got 5 hours and 39 minutes, also at 70% volume there. These also have fast charge, so 5 minutes will give you an hour's playback on the earbuds. And these also have wireless charging now where the XM3s didn't. Now onto the case, massive improvement over the XM3 case. It's been shrunk down to be more comparable to the AirPods Pro here for reference. Still has more chunk to it, but it's easily pocketable now, which is great to see. And you've got the same great build quality as the Buds. It feels just as nice to touch, nice matte feel there. I love the indicator light on the front there. The hinge is nice and sturdy and locks into place when you have it back there. The magnets are ridiculously strong, which is great, but you need to pull pretty hard to get the Buds out, but it's something you'll get used to. Pairing is very quick when you take the Buds out in under 6 seconds, but it actually takes 12 seconds for music to start playing since you get a voice prompted battery, and you can turn this off in the app, but music still won't play for 12 seconds, which is an interesting choice. Now onto controls, exact same controls as the XM3s, so you can control everything except for volume still. Not a fan of the way that Sony does it, to be honest with you. You can add volume control in the app, but you have to sacrifice either your ambient controls or your playback control. So you just can't have everything, which is annoying because you've got pairs like Jabra, Sennheiser Momentum 2s that allow you to adjust each individual control. So I don't know, Sony, I don't think they're ever going to fix it, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Still, the sensitivity here is spot on. You get a subtle beep feedback with all controls. Voice prompts will bring volume down when switching between ANC and transparency, so you can hear the change that you make at any volume. You've also got in-ear detection to auto pause and play your music when you take the Buds in and out of your ears, and this will also turn off noise cancelling in one ear if you just take one earbud out. And you can turn it on and off in the app. And if you want to use the ambient controls, if you hold down on the left earbud, that'll bring your volume down, keep the music playing, and then turn your transparency mode on so you can hear your surroundings. It's not as instant. It takes about 1 second, where the Sony headphones do it like instantly, but still nice to see if you want it. And a brand new feature here the XM3 didn't have is speak to chat, which is also seen on Sony's headphones, which will basically allow you to have a setting where if you speak, it'll pause your music, turn your transparency mode on so you can hear someone that's talking to you, and then it can automatically turn off. And you have some customization in the app there to customize how long you want to turn it off for, or you can just tap on your earbud when you finish talking to someone and your music will start playing, noise cancelling will turn back on. Now onto connectivity, got Sony's own V1 processor with Bluetooth 5.2, SBC, AAC, and LDAC codec this time around, which wasn't seen on the XM3s for all you Android users out there. Now, in terms of Bluetooth range, you can get 26 meters outdoors in a clear open space and 16 meters indoors, and that's downstairs, upstairs, through 5 walls. So pretty much the best Bluetooth range you can get. Sadly, there is no multi-pairing this time around. I was honestly expecting it to be here. At this price, you should really see it, especially when you got Jabra pairs that have it, even the 75T, and you got $69 pairs like the Xiaomi Redmi Buds 3 Pro that have multi-point connections. So come on, Sony, sort it out. But like the XM3s, if you do want to switch devices, you don't have to disconnect from your old device to connect to a new device. So not too bad. And you can use the left and right earbud individually, but unlike the XM3, they didn't work in mono mode. So on the XM4s here, you're gonna be able to hear both audio channels if you're just using one earbud. And a super cheeky feature they've done as well, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but if you're using both earbuds, take one out of your ear, chuck it on your desk or whatever, you have the in-ear detection on, it'll turn the earbud that's still in your ear into mono mode so you hear both audio channels. No one asked for this. I really like it though. It's what tech is all about. So nicely done, Sony. All right, moving on. Let's talk about latency now. Latest Bluetooth chip. No issues with like YouTube and Netflix and all that kind of stuff on iOS or Android. When it comes to gaming, there is no low latency gaming mode to be seen here. You do have an option in the app to turn your priority of connection to stable or sound quality, but I didn't find that changed the latency at all. Then generally with latency, if you can get below 300 milliseconds, you're good. Below 200 milliseconds, you're really good. So I'm just gonna chuck up my test here on both iOS and Android so you can see the latency for yourself, and I'll also chuck in my microphone test right after, so I'll see you in a sec. All right, and here is a microphone test with the Sony WF-1000XM4s in a nice quiet room. And this is what they sound like with some crowd noise being played off my desktop computer speakers. And this is what they sound like with a fan blasting right in my face right now to mimic what it would be like to be on a phone call outside on a windy day. All right, so here is a microphone test with the Sony WF-1000XM4s. All right, here's a microphone test with the Sony WF-1000XM3s on a nice busy highway here at the moment, so you can hear the differences between these and the XM4s. These now use bone conduction technology, which is supposed to pick up your voice better, more effectively, and block out the noise going on behind me. But one slight issue is they don't pick up outside noise, like turn on transparency mode automatically. So I've currently got noise cancelling on. It's kind of hard to hear my own voice, but hopefully still microphones sound pretty good. All right, before we talk about noise cancelling, a quick little drop on my Instagram here. If you want to stay updated with behind the scenes action of me and my audio ventures, link is down below. All right, on to noise cancelling. And quickly, how I test my noise cancelling at the moment, I chuck my soundbar on, nice and loud, has a subwoofer, so I get all the high and the low frequencies. And I'm just gonna chuck in my ANC ranking so you can see it here, and you can see that Sony has now taken over the Bose Quiet Comfort earbuds, which were the clear #1 for like almost a year now. Just keep in mind, this was super close. They're only just better than the Bose Quiet Comfort earbuds, but this does make them the best noise cancelling device that I've ever tested because they block out more noise than my Sony WH-XM4 headphones. And you're not just getting better noise cancelling performance, there's also less cabin pressure compared to the headphones, which is like that weird suction feeling you get, like that pressure in your head when you have noise cancelling on. So great stuff. And I wasn't sure if it was just the ear tip doing most of the work because of the seal that you get. It's a really good seal, but the actual processing with that new chip has definitely improved as well. Because I tried the foam tips on the XM3s, and it did improve the noise cancelling slightly, but it was still nowhere near the quality of the XM4s. And you can see where the XM3s are on my noise cancelling ranking list, all the way down the bottom there. They're an older pair, but a nice improvement from Sony. But the positives continue on because you get barely any EQ shift here, which is when like sound quality changes with noise cancelling on, which is great to see considering how strong the noise cancelling is. Normally, the stronger the noise cancelling, this can affect sound quality a little bit, but if anything, the actual soundstage gets a bit wider as well. There's also not too much of that white noise hiss with noise cancelling on, and whatever setting you did have on last, when you take the earbuds back out of the case, that'll be saved. The transparency mode here is also really good. Slight improvement over the XM3s. They sounded a little bit digital, so much more natural this time around. I'd rate them like an 8 out of 10 on the transparency quality scale, almost on par with the AirPods Pro, which is pretty impressive considering how good the passive noise isolation is with those foam ear tips. You've also got some customization in the app, 20 different levels of transparency you can choose, and there's also an option to click focus on voice, and that'll block out some sounds around you if you want to just talk to someone in front of you in a noisy environment. I find it helps, but I also found I didn't really need that on to hear voices clearly. And by default, you can only switch between noise cancelling and transparency mode, but you have an option in the app to add noise cancelling off in that cycle, so you don't have to go into the app to turn noise cancelling off. There's also a wind noise reduction mode, which was seen on the XM3s, but it works a little bit differently here. So now it's like an automatic wind noise reduction. So the noise cancelling performance stays at the same quality, where if you turn that on in the XM3s, the noise cancelling performance just stayed at a lower quality. So what will happen is microphones will hear wind noise, then it will bring your noise cancelling quality down a little bit, so you don't hear wind coming through your microphones. And I was just testing this like in front of a fan. It worked great. There was a slight windy day. I was able to go outside, and I found the noise cancelling didn't really let too much wind noise in to start with, but if it's like really windy outside, that's when it will kind of bring it down and use that auto wind reduction. If it's only slight gusts, it won't turn it on, and you'll kind of still come through the microphone. Now I quickly touched up on the app, but let's run through a couple extra features that I haven't covered yet. So on the main screen, you got the battery life of your earbuds and your case as well. You've still got adaptive sound control here, same as the XM3s, which basically you can change settings dependent on the location that you go to, save it, so whenever you go there, you can have certain EQ settings on or noise cancelling on and that kind of stuff, and that still works really well. Same EQ customization, 360 reality audio, and DSEE Extreme, which I'll talk about in a sec. Voice assistant options, ear tip fit test, auto power off, auto download software, and initialize headphones, which is basically like a factory reset. Overall, great app, the best customization, and it works really well. Now, before we talk about sound quality, let's touch up on volume. At 100% here, these go pretty loud. I rate them like a 7.5 out of 10, so if you really love your loud level listening, these might not be enough for you. And compared to the XM3s, I rate them like an 8.5 out of 10. You get about another notch, almost a notch and a half of volume on those. Keep in mind, this is tested on Spotify, which is a quieter streaming service. If you use Apple Music, for example, that's about 3 clicks louder. So on Apple Music, these would be loud enough. And I did find the sweet spot listening here was like 60 to 70%. When you go above 70%, things start to change, and not for the best. I'll talk about that shortly. If you're looking for low level listening, these get my bedtime certification. They go incredibly low, and you can jump into your phone's slider volume thingo, and you can really bring it down to a nice low volume. Same as the XM3s, so a great bud to use at night for some quiet level listening. And if you like to listen to low level music or podcasts, there's barely any white noise hiss with noise cancelling on. And when you turn noise cancelling off, there's also barely any. So if you find that white noise hissing static sound annoying, no issues here. All right, now onto the sound itself, and right out of the box with no EQ customization, they sound good, but it's nothing special. I honestly find the WF-XM3s sounded better right out of the box with no EQ customization, because the treble on those is much nicer compared to the XM4s, which have a more balanced, safe, more mid-focused tuning, but this does provide you a really good bass to play around with the EQ. And this is my favorite setting on the EQ, a nice bump up in the upper mids and the treble, and a little 2 extra clicks there on the bass. Not really needed, but I like my bass. So with this EQ, these buds sound way better, and they respond really well to this EQ. So you can really customize them to become a more balanced bud. That'll work really well. You can also make these quite bass heavy if you want to as well. Sort of, not really. Talk about that in a sec. So now comparing my optimal EQ for the XM4 compared to my optimal EQ for the XM3, I say the XM4 have a nice little bump up overall in sound quality and clarity. My main issues with the XM3s were slightly recessed mid-range, not enough sub bass, and a little bit too much in the mid bass. And Sony has sorted all of this out, but with the sacrifice of the treble never really being able to have the same sparkle that the XM3s did. But when EQ'd, it gets pretty close. And also, I'll be talking about the sound quality here with noise cancelling on, with DSE Extreme on, which is like Sony's digital signal processing to make lower quality files sound a little bit better, and also priority on sound quality. And with the DSE, I didn't really find it helped improve the clarity or sound quality, but I did notice it just widened the soundstage ever so slightly. So starting with the bass here, very well rounded. It's got some nice balance. Even with my 2 extra clicks there on the EQ, it still stays nice and balanced, but has some nice depth as well. It hits deep when needed, and it's just enough here so it doesn't detract from the mids and the highs. And on my like subwoofer bass head scale, I'd rate this a 7 out of 10. So if you're a bass head, don't expect like crazy head shaking bass on these, but you are getting a nice amount to work with pretty much any genre. But if you are a bass head, you can dial that clear bass all the way to 10, and you'll get a nice, incredibly bass heavy sound. But it's only going to be below 60% volume. When you start to go above 60%, that bass comes down pretty much to what it would be like on my EQ there with 2 clicks above. So not ideal. And like I said, the mid bass has been dialed back slightly compared to the XM3s, which cleans up the sound a little bit more. Now the mid range here is some of the best I've ever heard on any true wireless earbud. Vocals come through incredibly clear, so does instrumentation, all while never sounding too forced. And if they do sound a little bit too forced for you, you can always just dial that down in the EQ. Now the treble with no EQing, honestly not that impressive, but with the EQ I've got here, it's much better. Still doesn't have that nice like kind of sparkle the XM3s had, but it has been improved in terms of detail and resolution, and some of the best detail in the whole true wireless world when it comes to treble. Also without getting too harsh, even at high volumes, even with the EQ customization I got here. So combine all of this, you're getting some really impressive instrument separation, also some of the best in the true wireless world, and in a nice open soundstage, some of the best here as well. So imagine soundstage like a 360-degree sphere around your head. It's how wide that sound is. And when you have DSE Extreme on, and the noise cancelling also widen it a little bit, don't know how, you get a nice open sound so it doesn't feel too congested like everything's in front of you. So overall, this safer tuning has worked really well, especially when you combine it with the EQ. And comparing to the XM3s, I do like the XM4s slightly better now. I still like the treble on the XM3s better, but all the other improvements I find are a worthy trade-off. But there is an issue here that I really don't like. It's when you go above 70% volume, like I said before, things start to change sound-wise. So basically from 70% to 100%, each click closer to those higher volumes, all that's kind of going on is the mid bass increases and the mids as well, while the treble and your sub bass kind of just stays at the same level. So at those high volumes, these buds sound very different. And I was kind of going crazy. I don't know if this was actually a thing. So what I was doing was I had a song on with like some nice treble, some nice sub bass, and I was going 4 clicks down in the volume on my phone, quickly 4 clicks up. It was very easy to notice that treble wasn't getting increased. So things like hi-hats, ride cymbal, crashes, even female vocals kind of just got left behind. And when listening to tracks with a lot of sub bass like hardstyle, trap and dubstep, or even some nice deep bass lines, it's still there, but it kind of just gets overshadowed by the mids and the mid bass. Again, keep in mind, this will pretty much start to happen on the last 5 clicks of volume. So it'll start kind of subtle, and the closer you go to 100%, the more it's going to happen. So it's worse at 100%, 70%, it's not as bad, but it still starts to happen. And if you do own a pair, try this out. Let me know if you notice the same thing. And I also tried this with like no EQ on, DSE off, and like turn all the settings on, turn them back on. It still happened either way. And look, I can see what they were going for. They probably just wanted to bring the treble down so it didn't get too harsh or piercing at those high volumes. But I just found I really don't like the way they've done it. A lot of songs sound very bloated with the bass, mid sound incredibly forced. Not on all songs, some songs might even sound better. And look, it just depends, you might like it more than me. We all have different tastes, we all hear things differently. But I honestly just think the execution with this is just slightly off, because I've never tested any other earbud that does this. And comparing to the XM3s, they kind of did it with the bass ever so slightly, if you had like your bass EQ really high, but nowhere near the amount of the XM4 here. So just something to keep in mind before purchasing these. But moving on, let's talk about 360 reality audio here. I've never tried it before. And basically, if you buy the XM4s, there should be a little voucher that you should get in the box, which gives you 2 months of Tidal for free, which is compatible with 360 audio. And I tried it out, compared a few songs, compared it to Apple Music's Dolby Atmos, and Dolby Atmos has sounded a lot better, a lot more clarity, bigger soundstage. And I know 360 reality audio is probably mainly for watching movies, same as like spatial audio on AirPods. But I honestly find Dolby Atmos is better. So yeah, not the best. And I also quickly want to touch up on using the LDAC codec on Android compared to AAC. And of course, you're going to need a high quality streaming service. I use Apple Music, which has lossless audio, and you're going to get about a solid 10% improvement overall in sound quality using LDAC. So look, if you're an Android user and you don't mind that little decrease in battery life, if I used Android, I would use this 100%, but I'm an iPhone user. So Android people, enjoy. All right, now to explain the sound a little bit further, let's run through my genre rating checklist. It's gonna be a nice, easy one here. I'm locking in a solid 9 out of 10 for everything. A lot of these would have been 10 out of 10s if it wasn't for the volume situation though. So EDM, radio, hip hop, R&B, all shine on the XM4s, being a little bit more vocal focused. And you're also getting a nice, tasteful amount of bass to add to the energy of those types of music as well. With metal and rock, separation is really great. You get that nice, heavy live sound still with that nice bass, and the separation and soundstage works great with those genres as well. With hardstyle, trap and dubstep, I gave it a 9 out of 10. If it wasn't for the volume situation, this would be an easy 10 out of 10, because I find these genres you're probably gonna wanna listen to at those high volumes, and these are the genres that kind of do get affected a little bit more, especially certain songs that have a bit more of that sub bass and deeper bass frequency going on, which is what you get in hardstyle, trap and dubstep. Again, not on all songs, but like I tried these out. I was doing a heavy deadlift. I chucked on some Anger Fist, earbuds 100% volume. You shouldn't listen to loud volumes for long periods of time. It's only short periods of time, people. Save your hearing. But anyway, ran into my lift, cranked the volume really loud, and then just the bass dropped and it threw me off. It was a terrible lift. So just a real life experience of how that sound quality can change at high volumes. Like I said, some songs actually sort of sounded better. I noticed this with Psytrance. It's kind of got a punchier, not too much sub bass going on kind of sound. Some songs sounded better, but when a song just has a little bit more mid bass in the drop, then it sounds very bloated and very muddy. So look, a little bit of a letdown, to be honest with you. I'm someone that likes a bit of loud listening from time to time if I'm just really feeling a song or I'm training or whatever. And sadly, the Sonys just don't shine when it comes to that. And it's kind of the same with the fit, a little bit hit and miss here. It might work for some, it might not work for others. Apart from that, these buds are bringing you some serious quality, some of the best quality in the whole true wireless world. And you might be asking the question, should I upgrade from my WF-1000XM3s? And there are definitely some solid reasons to, because the ANC performance is miles better. The fit also might be better, could also be worse. But the case is a third of the size, you get LDAC codec, and the sound quality is better overall, but not at high volumes. Some things to consider there. All right, but that wraps it up for today. I'll see you in the next video where I compare the XM4s to the one and only AirPods Pro. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, stay picky with your audio, because life's too short for crappy sound. See you in the next video. Bye now.